Right. Hello and welcome, FPL managers, and welcome to the Zonal Weakness brought to you by Gono Football Fantasy. We are back after a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, we were unable to do so because of the month of Ramadan, and of course, some of us are also on leave, but also got very engaged in professional work. So, yeah, but glad that we are back, and we will be continuing until the end of the season. And Bethany will be back joining us soon as well. But for this week, for Gaming 32, of course, it will be me who will be doing it. So I hope I do some sort of a justice with it. Um, and at least it's good to be back in a sense that, with the 32 people playing the wild card, and of course, the cheap strategies are coming into effect with all the double gamings, blank gamings, and the double gamings being announced due to the fixture changes and the FA Cup results and other things. So, pretty interesting time to be actually. Be back at this moment. And I think we should just get straight away started with the zonal weakness. But we are not going to dive into any of the double gamings right now. I think double gamings is next week. So in that case, we will be discussing some of the players for the double gamings next week. However, for the wildcards, those of you are picking, you can already have a look at it as to how those players are also looking while you try to pick them in this week. So we'll try and focus on that as well. Um, let's get started. And of course, this is the double game week. This is the zonal weakness for game week 32. And if you haven't followed or liked or subscribed to our channels, please do so now because we are doing regular shows and, of course, producing regular content out. So, yeah, any support and we get from you is sincerely appreciated, to be honest. So please do give us all the support that you can. And we are thankful and we are grateful for that as well. All the stats and the data that you see are taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you're interested in the membership, please do click in the link in the description below and you will find the discount price. Of course, it's the end of the season, but again, the membership runs for 1 year, so you will have your membership until the next season as well. So no worries, even if the season ends right now, a couple of weeks later, you will still have your membership, so you don't need to buy it again at the beginning of the season. So here's the first table for the zonal weakness, and as you can see, there's a lot of green here, and we can start with, of course, Arsenal versus Bournemouth. And first up, it's of course from the right flank, it's Martinelli and Trossard who are looking prospective for this particular game week with 21 chances conceded by Bournemouth, and yeah, they're ranked fifth. Worst side down the center doesn't look very appealing at all, particularly for Gyökeres and Rice. But on the left-hand flank, again, I think this is where, again, Arsenal looks a little bit more sharper, playing against Bournemouth, who looks quite weak, ranked fourth by conceding 22 chances, where Saka and Timber will be occupying. And of course, for some of you are also considering keeping Gabriel for this week and also for the double game week. So that's something that you can keep in mind, looking at the headed conceded, with 19 chances conceded by Bournemouth. And of course, they are ranked fourth worst side in terms of headed conceded. So that would be the first fixture, focusing on the next one, which is Burnley versus Brighton. And I think it's one of the teams that is being quite widely discussed. Brighton in particular. Burnley is in the relegation fight, of course, and Brighton have a good run of fixtures and also a double game week in 33, but also have a good run of fixtures until the game week 37, playing some of the teams that are in the relegation zone or could be relegated a couple of weeks later. So that's why. And having a look at it, the zonal weakness right now, it looks like Burnley seems to be quite weak down the left, right, and the center, particularly from the left, where they have considered 29 chances and a ranked worse, where Gomez is likely to play. And then again, down the center, it's again 22 chances, where Welbeck and Hinshelwood, who's been a quite sort of asset that we are trying to really focus on currently. And he's Burnley are ranked third in that particular spot or particular zone. And then on the right flank, of course, they have considered 24 chances and where Minte, Gross and Kadioglu is going to play. So some of you are really looking at Hinshelwood, and I know also at Kadioglu, but even as a third striker option. I think Welbeck is someone that's in everybody's mind as well. He scored already 12 goals, so that's something probably his highest for the season. So yeah. Moving on to the next fixture, which is Wolves versus West Ham, and of course unlucky, but here we can see that Wolves look a little bit shaky down the right flank despite the defensive solidarity that they have shown over the last couple of weeks, but also on the left flank where they are ranked fourth, considering 22 chances where Bowen is going to play. Now, Bowen is one guy, um, one player that everybody is also considering as a single game week player, and they have no double game weeks. So that's something that we should keep in mind if you're choosing. At least 32 leagues promising for Bowen. But Ville and Diouf also looks promising as well with 35 chances considering who's being the weakest down the right flank. Down the center, slightly misses out where Tati and Matheus Fernandes are going to play with 19 chances and a rank 7th. So, yeah, that's why we didn't really particularly color it. But in terms of crosses conceded, I think Wolves again look quite shaky and they're on the worst side in terms of the crosses conceded from both flanks. Next fixture is, of course, Newcastle versus Crystal Palace. And as you can see, Newcastle have actually considered, Newcastle have actually considered 21 chances down the right flank and a ranked fifth, where Johnson and Gesson is going to play. And of course, down the center is where it looks very promising for Crystal Palace, because this is where Newcastle seems to be quite weak with 25 chances considered on the worst side, where Mateta and, of course, Larson are going to occupy that particular spot. 23 chances considered down the left flank and a ranked second, where Sarr and Munoz are working. So Munoz, Mateta, and are really looking like promising. And of course, Larson is also on a good run of form, so he could also do well, at least particularly in the international settings. For the next match, it's Liverpool versus Fulham. And you can see from the center and from the right flank, this is where Liverpool seems to be showing a lot of weaknesses. And I think that's quite evident given their defeat against City 4-0. And I think that is a bit of a concerning. It looks like there's a little bit of lack of morale at this moment with the Liverpool team. But again, I'm not the one who's going to judge them on that. But at least the data suggests that they are definitely weak down the down the right and the center, considering 21 chances each and are ranked fourth down the center and fifth down the right flank, where Jimenez, Munoz, and Iobi, and along with Oscar Bob and Robinson, are going to occupy that particular spot. I wouldn't suggest Robinson because he's been a troll over the couple of weeks. But yeah, Jimenez and Iobi could be somebody that if you're thinking, and if you're not having a wild card and you want to take some risk, I think these two players could be the ones that you could perhaps consider. Sunderland versus Tottenham. Now, Tottenham is also struggling a little bit this season with Roberto Di Zerbi right now back. 25 chances considered down the center for Sunderland, where they're ranked worst. But again, even if they're worst, they are not really conceding that many goals. That's interesting, and I think that data is going to be quite clear in terms of the goals considered. But in terms of the chances considered, this is where Sunderland really looks weak with Solanke and Kolo Muani occupying that particular spot for Tottenham, who could exploit that zone for Sunderland. 22 chances considered on the right flank, ranked fourth, where Xavi and, of course, Spence are going to occupy. So that's something important that you should take note of in terms of the crosses considered. Again, really not really looking good for Sunderland. 65 and 69 chances, crosses, and yeah, they're ranked fourth and second respectively. Everton versus Brentford. Now, both of them, I don't think so, have a double game week right now. I might miss it, but again, as far as I remember, both of them do not have a double game week. So a lot of the managers are now planning to chop Thiago. But this particular game week, with the wildcard being played, he might be removed. However, Thiago's data indicates, or at least the zonal data indicates that, Everton have actually considered 21 chances down the center and are ranked fourth, where Thiago is going to occupy that particular position. So if you have the flexibility and the number of transfers, this could be perhaps the week where you could keep Thiago and bring him in next week ahead of the double game week. Or sorry, replace him next week ahead of the double game week with somebody else, the double game week player. But yeah, and if you think no, you want to take the risk, please do feel free to remove Thiago. But at least the data suggests, Everton could actually concede, particularly from the center. Brentford versus Everton, on the other hand, it's NDIA who's looking a little bit brighter in terms of the zone that he's going to occupy, where Brentford shows a lot of weaknesses, ranked fifth, with 21 chances conceded. So, yeah, that's something that we should, again, not really particularly very important when we are thinking from the wildcard point of view, or even keeping the double game week in 33 and 35 point of view. But again, if you are still reluctant to remove some of the players that are really doing well and have shown, and your team is looking balanced, and you don't want to really remove all the players from thing, and Brentford or Everton are the teams that you think are doing extremely well, or in your opinion could do well this week, yeah, then please do, but not really high in terms of, at least not in my team. I wouldn't be really keeping both of them. Anyway, I have Thiago and I'm going to remove him anyway and go with another strike and set myself along for the double game week in 33. Moving on to the next table, and I think there's a lot of black here and less green. So I'm going to just focus on the green here, with Crystal Palace playing against Newcastle, where Thiago is the only option that seems to be standing out. 21 chances conceded, headed conceded, ranked third. And I think that's the only option that is there. But Elanga and Trippier are slightly missing out with ranked 8. So something that you could keep an eye on. So Crystal Palace have actually shown a little bit of weaknesses down the left flank with 21 chances conceded. Now, interesting point that I would like to also bring is a popular captain option is Bruno Fernandes this week. And as you can see at the top of the table, they're playing Leeds United. Leeds, however, seems to be quite strong down the center, conceding only 15 chances over the last 6 game weeks and are ranked 11, sorry. And that's where Mbeumo, Bruno Fernandes, and Sesko will occupy that particular position. And yeah, not really very concerning, or a lot of weaknesses shown by Leeds in terms of the number of chances conceded, and they're pretty much bottom half of the table, or at least in the better half of the table if you look at it from the ascending order. And yeah, so those of you considering Bruno Fernandes, just do keep in mind the Zonal doesn't really support much, and I think that's something that you should keep an eye on. Now, the last fixture that I'm going to cover is West Ham versus Wolves, and this is where Mane and Bueno, could do well, with West Ham showing a lot of weaknesses down the right flank with 31 chances, ranked second. But in terms of the crosses considered, also West Ham is showing a little bit of weaknesses again, with 70 crosses considered from the right flank and ranked third. So again, Mane and Bueno could do very well. Excuse me, my throat is a bit dry. Sorry for that. So I think that's that with the table. Let's just quickly move to the team of the week, Zonal Weakness. Now, this is not our double game. This is not our wildcard team, so do not consider this as one. It's just the team that we are suggesting for this particular week that we think, based on the zonal data, could actually do well. And I think the selection itself kind of indicates, and it becomes quite obvious, with Welbeck, Larson, and Bowen making the top three, front three. Somerville and of course Gomez, followed by Saka and Sarr, and as we have rightly seen in the zonal data, also indicates as to why they warrant a position in the midfield this week. The defense three, the back three, of course, it looks like Diouf and Kadioglu and Munoz are rightly picking themselves up for this particular position, given their opponents and the weaknesses that we have already seen in the previous 2 slides. If you have not, please just go back and have a look at it, and you can review it yourself and analyze it by pausing the video, and then of course having a look at it and make your own conclusions. Raya is at the goalkeeper, so there's nothing much to discuss. But I think a lot of managers are going to remove Arsenal assets this week, given that they do not have. And of course, there's a lot of managers that are going actually with the wild card as well, opting only for Gabriel, most likely. Right? Okay. In terms of the goals considered, I think let's look at the worst five first. Burnley seems to be the one who's been conceding the most number of goals so far, 61 goals conceded, with home away being the one where there seems to be conceding more goals, 38. So, yeah, it doesn't look really bright for Burnley at this moment, and I think that's why there's a lot of focus on the Arsenal assets. Sorry, Brighton assets, not Arsenal. Brighton assets. West Ham again looks a little bit leaky, and they're the second worst team in terms of the goals considered, conceding 57 goals, where it's quite evenly distributed in terms of the number of goals that they have conceded home and away, so which is quite interesting. So it doesn't really make a lot of difference whether they're playing it at home or are playing away. West Ham is likely to concede a lot of goals again. Anyway, Wolves, who have shown a little bit of remarkable form, being the lowest, but again, coming back to that similar sort of a position again, showing weaknesses, considered for 54 so far. And again, at home is where they seem to be conceding the most number of goals. What might really be the reason, it's quite unclear, but maybe they're not being able to handle the bad start that they had, or even the pressure that is on them right now. Tottenham, again, struggling with the relegation, and of course, maybe we'll see a bit of a new manager bounce, but again, whether the defensive and the goal conceding will stop is something that we'll have to wait and watch. But again, what's really clear is they have conceded 50 goals so far. And yeah, it's home again where the issue is. Not too much difference between the away and home goals conceded, but still, home seems to be a little bit more than the away performance, as you can rightly see. Bournemouth is the fifth worst side in terms of the goals conceded. As you can see, 48 goals conceded. And I think this is when they're playing away, it's quite evident that they seem to be conceding the most number of goals. Yeah. Let's quickly look at the top five. And of course, obviously, Sunderland is back again. And as you can see, despite being the worst side in terms of the chances conceded, Sunderland and Leering are the team who are conceding a lot of goals. And that's why they're ranked fifth best team in terms of the goals conceded. Yeah, so they have conceded the least number of goals, and they're ranked fifth in that order. But we have structured our chart accordingly to the worst to the best. So that's why Sunderland is ranked 16th and only 36 goals conceded. So yeah, another one that could surprise a lot of managers again. Everton, really solid performance so far. Defensively looking solid, although their center was looking a bit weak in terms of the chances conceded. But again, 35 goals only conceded so far, and not much difference between home and away. So it's a consistent defensive performance from Everton. Crystal Palace, again, similar, but they have also conceded 35, and again, their performance is again quite identical between Crystal Palace and Everton, to be honest, if you look at the number of data. I mean, if you look at the data in terms of the goals conceded home and away, and also the total number of goals is pretty identical. So I think it's quite telling. But yeah, that's no surprise there. And I think those two teams are really fighting it out. Manchester City, obviously, are the second best team, only conceding 28 goals. Away is where they have considered a little bit more, something that Pep Guardiola has already mentioned about it. So, yeah, something that they need. And of course, obviously, we all know, and I don't need to really elaborate too much on this, is that Arsenal are the best defensive side. And I think this is one of the reasons as to why most of our managers are planning to keep Gabriel in the team and then move on, despite not having a double game week in game week 33. So I think that's that for this week, and we'll be back for the double game week 33. Until then, good luck with your wildcard if you're playing one, or whichever chip you or whichever strategy you are particularly applying. But yeah, all the very best, and we'll be back again. Until then, take care. Bye bye.